In this WrestleTalk news, has Bray Wyatt been teasing his wrestling return, a Kenny Omega return update, and so much more. So subscribe and enable notifications to always on for daily wrestling news videos.
Support WrestleTalk!
So earlier this week we had the news from Dave Meltzer that Bray Wyatt hadn't returned to the world of wrestling yet because his asking price is very high. This is also after shooting a horror film over the winter and making appearances at a couple of conventions, but no wrestling shows yet. But now Wyatt, going by Wyndham, has resurfaced on Twitter and begun teasing something. I mean, he's changed his name to a red circle and cryptically tweeted, "I do think it's true that he who makes a beast of himself gets rid of the pain of being a man." A Samuel Johnson quote that he has paraphrased before as the Fiend character. Check out my Explain video series over on PFK if you want more on that. Watch it. It's probably one of the best things I've ever done. He then added, but if you become the machine, you don't have to feel at all. Hashtag what if, with a spooky picture of some medieval looking hentai. And then he closed out this tweet spree with "to be sentient." Now people have been speculating as to what this all could mean. Some schools of thought say that the red circle represents life being a circle, or coming full circle, WWE return confirmed. Which kind of also chimes with the idea of being a machine and not feeling anything, rejoining the old corporate machine, WWE return double confirmed. Obviously, this all could be Wyndham having some fun, but he does tend to tease his gimmicks long before they ever really become a reality. Look how far back he sowed the seeds of the Fiend as an example. Watch Explained. It explains it. But the initial quote directly references a tweet he made after his Super Showdown loss to Goldberg. This one: life is a circle. No matter what beast you make of yourself or how bright one side is, inevitably the dark side comes again. But the beauty of the circle is, round we go. It does seem to suggest it's wrestling related. Red circle, squared circle, it's all there. And life does move in circles sometimes, and just because you've left one company doesn't mean you won't find your way back there, as might be the case for Big Swole, who made the choice to leave the House of Khan in November last year, and post-exit was critical of the lack of diversity and lack of structure within the company overall. Tony Khan even clapped back on Twitter, saying he let Swole's contract expire as he thought she wasn't good enough. Ouch. Think you touched a nerve, Swole. So with that in mind, do you reckon Swole wants to go back to AEW? Well, it turns out she's not ruling it out. In an interview, she said everything that went down kind of just went as a surprise for me. I didn't necessarily know Tony Khan was going to react like that, but I mean, that's his God-given right. My line is still open for AEW because I don't like to burn any bridges. Honestly, I think in this case it was Tony holding both the petrol and the matches, so you're good on the bridges front. But the way Swole did that is the way that grown-ups should respond to what happened. Before we crack on with the rest of the episode though, we just need to thank The Cleaner, Kenny Shah, and Gavin Cash Money Kashiwabara for their support on Patreon. Thank you so much. So, Kenny Omega has been AWOL from AEW screens for months now, taking time off to recover from a litany of injuries he was working with all throughout his championship run in the company. But with all the talk of the Forbidden Door opening up for a full-on pay-per-view crossover, it's hard to imagine the show without Omega, the owner of the highest-rated NJPW matches of all time alongside Kazuchika Okada. Now, Kenny was originally reported to be back in AEW by February, but has since given interviews saying that perhaps that time frame was a little bit optimistic. Yeah, because it's now April. Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio gave another update this week though, saying it doesn't sound promising that Kenny will be back in time for Double or Nothing in May. And Forbidden Door is taking place in Chicago on June 26th, which is just under 1 month from Double or Nothing, so it kind of seems unlikely that Kenny would appear at that as well. My hope is that Kenny makes a surprise return at Double or Nothing to set up a match at Forbidden Door if he's well enough, or we get the surprise return at Forbidden Door to set up something at All Out in September, giving Kenny even more time to recuperate. Dave Meltzer on Wrestling Observer Radio was also pondering AEW's pay-per-view schedule and suggested that the company might be looking to move All Out from its traditional hometown of Chicago. As AEW times NJPW Forbidden Door, which does sound like a Capcom crossover fighting game, you're right, is taking place in Chicago in June, Meltzer reckons AEW might look to schedule All Out elsewhere, suggesting that booking a stadium show in Toronto might be something TK and crew look to do. AEW times NJPW Cross Tatsunoko versus Capcom EX Plus Alpha is obviously a big deal, and yes, another huge announcement from Tony Khan. But perhaps the boy who cried huge announcement has stopped being believed after potentially overutilizing the gimmick. Showbuzz Daily did the numbers, and this week's Dynamite netted 930,000 viewers with a 0.37 rating in the 18 to 49 demo. That is a 2-month low for Dynamite despite the tease of news from TK. By comparison, last week's show drew 977,000 viewers. Admittedly, the NBA playoffs were also on this week, so a lot of regular AEW viewers might have been watching that too. But how long can the effectiveness of a huge announcement actually hold up? Because even if ultimately every single one has actually delivered, it is the kind of thing you can catch up with on social media and you don't need to see live, unlike the wrestling bit. Because one thing I personally wish that I had seen live in person was Samoa Joe's dream match with Minoru Suzuki. Two guys just absolutely slapping chunks out of each other. Love it. But the finish of the match left something to be desired as the lights went down, teasing the arrival of a mystery person to face off with Joe, and came up to reveal Satnam Singh, a very tall man who is ultimately a rookie and an unknown in wrestling. So, you know, hype up here, reality down here somewhere. And the angle has been much maligned online, with Tony Khan even saying he wishes he had done the debut differently. Joe has also been talking about it too in an interview with the New York Post and said he doesn't understand the drama. I think hemming and hawing over minor things like that are ridiculous. I understand people have their opinions and feel a certain way about it, but I personally think it's silly to sit here and continue to harp on it. But Joe, that's our entire business model. Anyway, it's stupid. It was stupid. In the very same interview, Samosif Joseph, to use his full name, also talked about teaming up with the Blackpool Combat Club. He said, "There are a lot of men within that stable I have a great amount of respect for, and some I'm learning to acquire respect for. Obviously, some would think that it would be a perfect fit for me, but I've never been one to be a very good teammate, so I don't know how that would work." Now, Joe has obviously been talked up by fans as being the perfect fit for the group, especially considering his NXT history with Big Willie Reeves, but personally, I just like Joe on his own as a lone force of destruction. How about you? Tell me in the comments. Back at Joe's old work, they've been busy coming up with more brilliant names for stuff, as 2 new trademarks have proven. Firstly, WWE filed for NXT Spring Breakin', the special announced on this week's show. Prepare to be spring broken. The second was a ring name, Tiger Turan. Tiger Turan made his NXT UK debut at the latest set of tapings in BT Sports Studio in London, really near our office actually. Moving on to news that I don't understand and have little interest in trying to, 2 WWE stars are going to be part of the NFL draft this year. Yeah. The company announced that Titus O'Neil and The Miz will take part in the event next week, with Miz representing the Cleveland Browns and Titus repping the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Both men will be announcing the selections for their hometown teams at the show in Las Vegas next week. Miz will obviously be on his best behavior after absolutely burying Cleveland on WWE TV really recently. Let me know in the comments why the draft is important and why I should care. To hem and haw and harp on about something else, I think we can all agree that it was a bit of a shock when the entirety of Hit Row was released by WWE back in November after only being on SmackDown for a month, and frankly, getting over. Now, while they've all moved on, there has been one lingering question, and that is Top Dollar, who in a previous life hosted WWE's Most Wanted Treasures as AJ Francis. Now, Francis told the 2-man Power Trip podcast that currently he's still contracted to the show despite having been released from WWE last year. He said, "I'm still under contract. It's a completely different contract. I thought it was dumb. I said, why do you make me sign a different contract? You should just be adding to my WWE money." They were like, "No, we need a different contract." Well, now thankfully, I have one. I mean, I'm planning on doing it. Nobody called me and told me that my contract is being paid out, so I'm planning on doing season 2 and season 3. But you know, like I said, business is business. We've got to figure that out. And this is just more evidence of just how mad that run of releases actually was, and ultimately how poorly thought through the whole thing seemed. Finally, some news about WrestleMania Backlash and undisputed WWE Universal Champion Roman Reigns, who is set to defend the title on the show, but currently has no opponent, so people don't think he will be on the show at all. Dave Meltzer's had the old listening devices out though, and found out that despite speculation Roman would not be appearing on the show as he doesn't have this opponent, he actually will be. He is in fact in the main event, Meltzer said. "I presume they'll shoot the angle on Friday. I don't know that as a fact. I would presume it. But he is in the main event on the WrestleMania Backlash pay-per-view." Now, since claiming both belts on night 2 of WrestleMania in the contest with Brock Lesnar, Reigns hasn't had an opponent set up, though he and the Usos did beat down Shinsuke Nakamura on SmackDown, which might be the only hint towards a Mania opponent at this juncture. I guess keep your eyes peeled tonight.
That is such.
Wait.
Wait.
Silence, please. 4. There she is,
Look at them.
Look at the triceps on the pair.
I was about to say, we just said then look at them because what we're talking about is her arms.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Massive arms.
Can we watch it again?